This is yet another MBA GOAT, a podcast featuring conversations with the greatest of all-time MBA alumni from the Naveen Jindal School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas. We are here to celebrate the outcomes of graduate management education and to identify remarkable examples of how the MBA program here at the Jindal School has transformed the lives of our alumni. Now, here's Lisa Shatz, Assistant Dean for the Jindal School's MBA programs. Take it away, Lisa.
Hey, you guys. Welcome to yet another MBA GOAT podcast. This is an exciting one. It is in person for the first time in 2 years, so I'm sitting next to our guest and having a regular in-person conversation. Today's guest is Sree Janakiraman. He is a full-time MBA from the class of 2019. He's currently an Associate Director of Strategy at AT&T. Welcome, Sree.
This is fabulous to get back in person onto the campus again after, almost a year.
Yeah, we started with a meeting to say, okay, what are all the things that we're not doing because we got out of the habit of doing? And those were things like ordering fun sweatshirts and different swag for students in competitions and things like that. Those were events. Those were all of those things that we used to do all the time. And we just kind of got away from them. So we've been doing a lot of fun stuff. We have a lot of fun events coming up for alumni, for students. And I expect really big turnouts because I think everybody's ready.
It's finally a good time to be a student again. So
it is.
Yep.
It is. Well, let's start by talking a little bit about your background, and I'll let you address that. And then we'll come in and I'll ask some questions about that because I think your journey is of a lot of interest to both our incoming students and our current students because you did an internship that turned into a full-time position. And so I'm going to get your thoughts a little later on how you made that happen. But go ahead and give us your background for now.
Yeah. So again, my name is Sreenath Janakiraman. I go by Sree. That's what my first boss named me as, I think, when I started off in the supply chain business back in 2011. But I'm originally from India. I came here in 2008 to Texas A&M to do a master's in industrial engineering. And then prior to that, I had an electronics and instrumentation engineering degree in India as an undergrad. But then I was here for up until about 2010 fall, working on my master's in industrial engineering degree, after which I went into work with Ryder Logistics as a supply chain engineer. Basically, what I was doing was a distribution and transportation management guy in charge of warehouses, whatever is happening inside warehouses and whatever is happening outside warehouses. Once done with that, I decided to move on to FedEx Ground sometime in 2015. As a hub industrial engineer. So I was managing distribution and transportation, which both were owned by FedEx at that point, which meant I had a much bigger scope of, improvement possible from an engineering perspective. So I was there for about 4 years, after which I decided to kind of cut it short and come in here and join you guys and do this full-time MBA program, which was about a 16-month absolute sprint. For lack of a better word. So, and here I am after a couple of years for graduation with AT&T now as an associate director of strategy. And I started off as a senior consultant, but I'm thankful to God moved up the ladder.
And you were, you were an intern and immediately went from an intern, graduated, went in full-time and had an interest in consulting, so did that internal consulting. For those students who are getting ready to go into their internships, what advice would you have for them on this is how you can really make an impact and this is what you should be thinking about if your ultimate goal is to get a full-time offer from that company?
So I think and maybe I'll back it up a little bit and go from my experience. The reason I got an internship at AT&T was because of my background in supply chain. And so they actually approached me through the campus recruitment as a person who would work in their distribution centers. And so while that was, again, my background, that was not where I wanted to go with my MBA. So what I did was I kind of took it up as a challenge. I thought of it as an opportunity to make a mark and present myself and look at myself as this resource as opposed to just this industrial engineer distribution management guy. So I think the advice from that point, that standpoint that I would give to students is maybe don't look at the internship as a be-all, end-all. Look at it as a foot in the door, because if your goals are aligned with the company's goals, I think that's where you go. as opposed to your goals are aligned with, okay, what the internship's goals are, which is only a 3-month sprint for all, for lack of a better word. So I think looking at the bigger picture and what the company has to offer, as opposed to just the focus of your internship, is going to be more important, especially in the post-pandemic world where you have several of these companies deciding to step up and offer much better, remote work opportunities or flexible work opportunities. I think it's very important for you as an intern to go into the company looking at it as a potential full-time opportunity and just not consider the internship as I'm not really interested in this internship. I'm not really interested in what's happening these 3 months. But I think use that opportunity, even if you're not doing something you love, to network across the organization and learn about the different sides of the organization. Because more often than not, people are actually going to go into very well-established organizations, as opposed to if you're really interested in a startup, which is a completely different ball game altogether. So I think my advice is to just look at the internship as a stepping stone, as a foot in the door.
And now you are working fully remote?
So our team was fully remote up until July last year. And then we had the Omicron wave and whatnot. So we kind of pulled back some of the compulsory requirements of us going back into the offices. So we were kind of flex until July last year. And then after that, we went back to fully remote. And now we're back to like twice a week in the offices again.
So our students are getting ready to go into internships right now, and many have gotten offers that they can either be remote or they can go into the office, which in many cases are either East Coast or West Coast. My advice to them was if you have the opportunity to work in the office, I think it's easier to make connections, to make an impact, to have people remember you, to network. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think you really have a great point there, where as an intern, you only have about 3 months to make an impression and maybe meet people in person and actually kind of get on their calendars and maybe just have them put a name to a face and whatnot. So I think it's very important to have that in-person interaction, especially as an intern, because that is your biggest key to establishing at least like some sort of a legacy as an intern, right? I mean, people have to look at you as, oh, this guy or this girl came in to our organization. They came in for the summer. They were really impressive. They were a pleasure to be around. They actually had good insights, and they also were very personable. I think organizations are looking more and more towards internships as a way to identify their future leaders, right? If you're really good as an intern, if you're really personable as an intern, I think 100%, 100 of 100 times, I think you're going to be a great leader in the organization.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it also seems like companies are more and more saying we're taking 80% of our interns and hoping to make them full-time versus in the past where it was like, if they're good, we'll try and find a place for them. And sometimes they can't. So it's good that companies seem to have more of a structured strategy around what to do with interns who are good.
So you bring a good point there. You got my strategy brain starting to think again. But I'll tell you what's happening across several organizations is that they're trying to increase the internship pool. So if a company, for example, let's just say Google is deciding to take, or it used to take 15 interns in 2019 summer, they've bumped that up to like 20 or 25 because the whole thing about the Great Resignation and also people getting multiple job offers and going after the highest bidder for their talent. Mm-hmm. I think that's causing a lot of these companies to back off a little bit and say, okay, do we really have enough interns in the pipeline to be future leaders? Because one, we're bleeding from a workforce perspective where there's a lot of people leaving or retiring. The second piece is all these interns that we already have, like let's just say we had 15 interns a couple of years ago. The same 15 interns, out of which we would have probably hired 5, we're only hiring 1 because the remaining 4 are still getting offered by us. They're just getting better offers elsewhere.
Right.
So I think that's the other piece here, going into how organizations are approaching the internship pipeline.
And of course, we see it from the other side, from the student side, where we'll have students who are like, I got an offer. It's not really what I want, but what if I don't get anything else? And I try to explain, this is the market. This is your market. Find what you really want, aim high, and those opportunities are there because companies are struggling so much to find people. It's a great gift to be given a student that they're hitting this timing just right, not to blow it, not to aim too low, not to question themselves, because we have great students and there's no reason they shouldn't be aiming at the top companies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, I think my batch of cohort, we definitely had some people with multiple offers and some others. I mean, there was a few which got offers a little bit late, but the market right now is in a situation where you're probably looking at maybe about 100, 125 jobs available to be offered to 50 people in the cohort. And I think that's an absolute dream scenario for somebody who's a new grad.
It is a dream scenario for them and a little bit of a dream scenario for us, working with those students and having those opportunities. That brings us to the next topic, which is looking at MBA programs and going back to, I guess it would have been 2017, maybe even you started looking 2016, because it usually is a couple of years. You had the background to understand what MBA programs were here and which ones had great reputations and all of that. So in looking at schools, what made you look at UT Dallas? And given the current market right now, what would your advice be to students who are trying to figure out what program they should go to?
Yeah, so I think I'll split that into maybe several sections, my answer. So the first piece is the reason why I selected UT Dallas, right? One portion of that is very personal when it comes to just, again, I'm based in the Metroplex. I've lived in the Metroplex for a while. So I don't really want to, I guess, move somewhere else just to do an MBA for about 2 years or whatever that time is. So that played into my decisions here. However, just from a more agnostic perspective where it's applicable to everyone, one thing is the fact that UTD offers tremendous value, tremendous return on investment. You're looking at a very competitive school with even when it comes to the overall rankings across all of the U.S., very competitive school. And we're top 30 right now?
Yeah, so U.S. News just came out and we are number 29.
Okay, all right. So pretty close.
But top 30.
Yeah, So I think that played into the decision making, the ROI, and the fact that it offers so much value for a program. Being a state school, like it's essentially, I guess, gets a lot of the funds from the state, and it's on the less pricier side of the spectrum when it comes to MBA programs. Mm-hmm. And the other piece was just the fact that as an MBA, you have to consider yourself that, okay, how long are you out of the workforce? How long are you going to lose out on having an opportunity to get a salary? Right. Mm-hmm. I think UTD kind of hit it out of the park when it comes to that. At the end of my MBA program, I was out of the workforce for 16 months, but essentially I was only out of the workforce for 12 months because 4 months of that was my internship at AT&T, and I got paid near full-time salary for that position. Mm-hmm. So I think from that standpoint, it was an absolute home run when it comes to just having people come into the MBA program who are already been in the workforce and who are like, okay, well, what am I going to do? The MBA is going to cost me to lose out on my salary. But that's going to be much less of a concern here. Apart from that, I think what presented the most opportunity for me to go to UTD was just the fact that the diversity element. I do have a lot of friends from UTD. Again, both from my background and also from backgrounds of from other countries as well. So I know for a fact that UTD, first of all, as an organization, as a university, has diversity and inclusion at the heart. And I think I've followed that in my career at AT&T as well. Because again, I consciously chose an employer who was very, very much into diversity and inclusion. Again, part of that came from me studying the MBA program here and looking at the sheer diversity that is within the program, that is within the faculty, and that is within just everybody else within UTD itself. So I think that's maybe a less heralded part of UTD's appeal, but just wanted to make that very clear that yes, diversity and inclusion was a huge part. I did get offers from other schools with scholarships and without scholarships, but I think I would have gone with UTD 100 out of 100 times.
Well, that's great to hear. And the diversity part is so true. It's interesting because you talk to students or to people you know that are in big corporations. They're making a lot of effort on the diversity and inclusion area. And it's great that they are, but I think about it and it's like, for us, that's never been something difficult because it's so inherently part of the program. We have 41 students seated already for the incoming fall. So we've got one more round to go. And we already have 8 countries included in the international student population. So We don't have any trouble with that. It just happens naturally here. And walking around, you can feel it, you can see it. It's not something that has to be forced at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I love the most about UT. It's a very intimate environment where you know everybody within the program and also within other programs. I think that enables you to actually have a feeling of family. Again, using a Fast and Furious reference here, but yeah, It's kind of like a family.
This episode is brought to you by the UT Dallas MBA program, top ranked nationally and in Texas. The UT Dallas MBA combines a robust core with 13 concentrations. You have an option to add a second master's degree, and your choices for that include 5 STEM-designated programs. The MBA program has full-time, part-time, online, and other formats. They give you flexibility to fit your MBA education into your busy schedule. The skills and training you will receive are what top employers are looking for. For more information, visit us online at jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.
So thinking about the students that are listening to this that are looking at a possible school, whether it be UT Dallas or somewhere else, but looking at getting their MBA, how would you suggest they research and find out about diversity and inclusion, other than just looking to see how many students are from different countries and things like that, to really get a feel for that?
So I think, again, I'll answer this based off first my master's program at Texas A&M, because I think there's a lot in common when it comes to just people from the international background coming in and searching for these universities. So I think the way that I went about it was, one, obviously you want to get as much documentation from publicly available resources as you can. So looking up the internet, looking up some reports, looking up, obviously, if it's a state-owned university, there's a lot of publicly available information on just their diversity metrics. That's, I think, one piece of it. The other piece of it, I think the soft touch point, what I say is maybe look underneath the layers, right? What does the faculty look like? What are their backgrounds? And again, by backgrounds, I don't mean like, okay, from countries or from regions of countries or whatever. It's again, different backgrounds when it comes to just viewpoints. Is everybody within a program just supply chain? In that case, you're looking at a very unidimensional one, as opposed to just a faculty that is a nice blend of different cultures, different backgrounds, and different viewpoints. That's the other piece. The third piece that I would look at is what I would call as student organizations, and that's a pretty big part of your life as a student. Beat you getting an MBA or a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. I think looking at the student organizations and what activities are happening on campus and what activities are being promoted by both the department and also the school as a whole. I think looking at that is also going to get you an idea of what or how serious is a school towards its diversity and inclusion goals.
Right. Well, we had 5 students this morning, prospective students, sit in on the class. And it was so good to have students back here, prospective students who could come on campus, sit in a class, meet the faculty, see what the administration is like, see what the other students are like. And I'm starting to see it from the other side as well. My son is a junior in high school, and we just took our first weekend to go tour schools. And I really haven't had that experience to kind of be on the other side. And we went to one school. They were all in New York City where he wants to go. We went to one school, and he said, I just don't think this is a place for me. He said, as we're walking around, everybody just looks like they're not having any fun. They're so serious. And he said, I just want to be somewhere where there's enjoyment, there's joy around, even if they're working hard. And, I thought about that and then came back here. I was in the classroom today. It's like there's no shortage of joy. Yeah. Is there hard work? Yeah. Is there stress? Absolutely. Did I hit it on a good day? For sure. But we do. Our people here are happy and enjoying learning, not just learning to check a box. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I can add some experiences from my time as an MBA candidate as well. I think I remember, was it Joanna or you getting pied in the face?
That was Joanna.
So I still have the video, and I look at it whenever I'm going through a rough day. I'm like, okay, that's gonna get my spirits up. But I think just to reflect back on my time as an MBA student, I think what I would take forward is just the relationships that I made. during the program itself. We had a ton of fun. I think a lot of the classes were very intense, but again, it was as intense as the classes were. The discussions after the class were completely on the opposite side of the spectrum. So made a lot of good friends, in touch with almost every one of them. And I think the other piece we also want to look at is, a lot of us, I think, made a lot of good, I guess, one-on-one relationships with the faculty. I think with Mike Peng, that was one. I think Dr. Peng was fabulous. And then there's a couple more as well. I can rattle off the top of my head.
And I think you were a TA as well for Britt Barrett when you were here.
Yes, Britt. Yeah, Britt, I was a TA for Britt for about 3-4 months as well. That was another opportunity that I got as a portion of my scholarship, which very thankful to the MBA office for getting me that opportunity. He's a hoot. So it was fun working with Dr. Britt.
Yeah, we've always worked really hard to make sure that students get enough scholarship that if they don't come here because there's a school that's a better fit, that's fine. But I don't want students not coming here because they just can't make it work. And, I've had so many students this semester say, my sign-on bonus is paying off like the entire amount I paid for the program. And what a great environment to be in.
Exactly.
When your sign-on bonus is literally like paying back everything that you had to borrow or that you spent on your program.
I guess that's one thing that was not too prevalent before the pandemic. That's now just commonplace, right?
Very common.
Huge sign-on bonuses for people who want to get into the workforce.
Yeah, I definitely graduated at the wrong time. I think my sign-on bonus was maybe $1,000 or $2,000. Okay, Sree, so the next thing is called our lightning round, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You're not allowed to think about it. You just have to blurt out whatever comes to mind.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
So who is your favorite faculty?
That would be Dr. Peng.
And 3 adjectives that describe your journey here.
Intense, spectacular, and tiresome sometimes.
What was the most impactful event?
I think it was the interview competition in Lead Camp. I think that was the real, I guess, test by fire. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that sounds very intimidating. And it was a little bit intimidating.
Good. Most critical course that you took?
I would say strategic management.
And your favorite food on or around campus?
Ooh, that would be the burritos. I forget the place where I got the burritos from.
The burritos.
It starts with A.
No,
Qdoba.
Qdoba.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, got it.
Okay, so that leads us to some other questions. So you said your most critical course was
strategic management.
Strategic management with Greg Dess.
Yes.
So talk about that a little bit. What about that course made it so impactful for you?
So I think there's 2 ways to answer that question because there's 2 courses actually. One is strategic management by Greg Dess, mm-hmm. And then the other one was special topics in strategy and policy. And I think that was tag teamed by Charlie Hazard and Redlinger?
Larry Redlinger.
Larry Redlinger. Okay, so those 2 courses were kind of like a 1-2 punch. Mm-hmm. One, basically the one with Dr. Hazard and Redlinger was very focused on case studies and delved into some of these companies, how they approach business situations and how they get out of like a bind or something like that. I think that helped me understand just overall strategic vision for companies and how they get out of tough situations or how they find themselves leading the pack. I think the second piece with strategic management, that course was super important for me, and it was very critical. It was a very tough course because you had to completely flip around your thinking. As an MBA, or you have several backgrounds coming into the MBA, and then you're fed the default courses of just basics in accounting, basics in finance, basics in marketing, and then basics in statistics. So all of these 4 are basics, and they prep you for that MBA mentality. However, none of these actually prepares you to change the mindset. I think strategic management, that course, and maybe the course with Dr. Hazard and Redlinger as well, tried to flip around my thinking. So in those courses, what I actually did was, I think, take a simple business case or simple business problem, look at it from 300 different angles, and try to create a narrative which is very consistent with what analysts are saying about the company as well. So I think the ability to digest 300 different bits and pieces of information and come out of it saying, okay, yeah, I got a very clear view of this. I think that's the bottom line of what an MBA does. And I think strategic management was so critical, but it was so important for my career growth as well. And again, 2 years later, I find myself leading a strategy team here. And we do, I think, a lot more of what was done in that course, but I guess on a different level, because now I'm an internal consultant for my company, as opposed to externally consulting for other companies. But I think that course single-handedly kind of set me up, along with the one with Dr. Hazard and Red Ledger.
So you're now in a leadership role, and those were certainly teaching leadership, not specifically about leadership, but in basically indirectly teaching you leadership. Any other leadership learnings, classes, experiences that you had in the program? Yeah,
tons actually. So as a part of the program, you are all put into project groups. And I think the project groups change by semester as well. So as a part of being as a part of working with different project groups, you get to work with different people, different backgrounds, and then again, different skill levels, different expertise levels. So when you're doing that, I think without you yourself knowing, you tend to get some of the leadership capabilities. You start to figure out, okay, how do I set up a project? How do I set up deadlines? How do I set up roles for people within the project itself? And I think by the end of the MBA program, you're like, okay, I know how to run a project. So I think that's one side of the leadership role piece. And I think the other side is just being able to, on a program level, get into roles such as, I think, MBA ambassador. There's a few other roles as well. I think the Dean's list is one, or
Dean's Council.
Dean's Council. So the Dean's Council is one. Definitely, I think the acting as a representative of the class is a huge opportunity as well. So I figured, and despite me not taking advantage of those opportunities, I was around people who were in those capacities. And I was able to imbibe some of their leadership qualities as well. So I think the whole thing is you're so close as a cohort. The reason you call it a cohort is you guys get through it together. You guys help each other out. You guys work with each other's strengths and weaknesses. You guys figure yourself out. And then you got to figure out how to move this entire beast of a program forward. And it requires all 50 or 55 of the people within the cohort. And so you guys end up helping each other, which means, again, you're doing servant leadership. So different levels of leadership taught by different aspects of the program. And I think by the time you're done with the program, you can be confidently saying that, hey, yeah, I can run a project, I can lead a bunch of people, I can make sure that I can talk to several different kinds of people, different backgrounds. Diversity and inclusion comes in there. And then I can also go into a brand new, ridiculously unheard of situation and come out top.
Sree, it has been so great catching up. Thanks for being an MBA GOAT.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for having me.
We are so glad you could join us today and hear about the journey of yet another MBA GOAT. For me, my MBA was truly transitional, as it is for so many of our students. If you're wondering where an MBA can take you, reach out to us and let's talk about you. Email us at mba@utdallas.edu and feel free to ask for me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of yet another MBA GOAT podcast. Join us online at mbagoat.com to find episode notes, links, and more. Be sure to subscribe to yet another MBA GOAT podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review. That will help spread the word about the podcast and the Jindal School's MBA programs. To learn more about the Jindal School's MBA programs, go to jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.